Okay, I'm going to do a review of the Smith & Wesson M&P Shield. This one's in 9mm. This is an updated video. My other video ran a little long. It had some information in it that was related, but not directly pertinent to the Shield. So I'm going to split up that information into its own separate video. Okay, to get started, I'll show that we are empty. Now, the reason I picked up the Shield is my fiance has been looking for a pistol for concealed carry, and she has wanted a small single stack 9mm to help her conceal it in the various types of clothing she wears. And we've been looking around and trying a few things, and she always has some issues with the pistol. Some of them she's managed to try and shoot because she thought she liked them, but then the recoil was too stiff, or she would try them, didn't like how they felt in her hand, didn't like the trigger, controls were difficult for her to use, or she couldn't rack the slide properly. And some of them she did really like tended to be the more expensive ones, and she wasn't prepared to spend the $700-800 on her pistol. She was hoping to stay $500 or less. So we had seen the Shield before, but we never looked at it closely when we were serious about purchasing a pistol. So we ran across it again during the search and picked it up. We both liked how comfortable it was, and the trigger was very smooth, had a decent break on it. She could manipulate the slide well and reach the controls easily. So she was very interested in it. And then when she found out that it was on sale and we could get it for $380 there locally, she decided to take the next step, and we went and paid to rent one. And when she shot it, the recoil was acceptable, so we went ahead and picked it up. Now, to start on, one of the first things we'll talk about here is ergonomics. As I said, we both thought this was very comfortable. It's smooth, there's no sharp areas, there's no real snag points on this pistol. The grip here, I think, is textured adequately. I don't think it has any issues with grip under recoil. Some people don't agree, and there are options if you're one of them. There are rubber sleeves that slide on to the grip to help give a little bit more traction, and a company called Talon Grips makes grip panels that are adhesive. It wraps around and sticks to the outside. It's similar to the non-skid tape that you put on stairs, and that has a very strong adhesive and a sandpaper-like texture, but they also have some that have a rubberized texture if you don't like the sandpaper feel. I'm not a big fan of the sandpaper feel myself. So that is an option if you think there's not enough grip here. As far as grip, I can get my pinky on, as you can see, about halfway. So usually I can shoot it without my pinky sliding under, but sometimes it's a little easier to do this. It felt weird at first for me, a little strange feeling to have your pinky hanging off, but after I got used to it, I didn't have an issue with it. I shoot it just as well as I do a full size. Fiance has slightly smaller hands than I do. I have a medium-sized hand, and hers are a little smaller. She can get her pinky on fully, so she'll have a full grip on this pistol. And Smith & Wesson does include a magazine that is it's an extended magazine that holds 8 rounds versus the 7 rounds of the flush fit. This affords me a very good full grip, and it's very nice for the range, and it's still concealable like this. really depends on how you carry personally, but if you wanted to carry this way, it's possible. The controls, you got your slide stop here and your magazine release. Magazine release, easy to use, easy to get to, and the magazines eject positively. But it's not ambidextrous like on the full-size M&P and the M&P Compact. This only has the smooth. It's smooth on this side, as you can see. There's no the controls only on this side, and you cannot swap the magazine catch to the other side like you can on the other pistols. So if you're a left-handed user, that's might be a problem for you, but if you've learned to work around it, then of course you can. The slide stop can be reached by me. Some pistols I cannot reach it, it's a little too far forward. This one I can reach, but I don't use the slide stop to drop the slide during a reload. I slingshot the slide on a reload because I feel that that is a more reliable method. It works on every pistol you ever pick up. I do have to adjust my hand to get to the magazine release, but I find I have to do that on every pistol I've picked up. Only the very smallest of pistols can I even get close to hitting it, and I don't think that's a problem. It's just that's the way my hand is. If your hand's similar, then don't let somebody tell you you have to be able to reach that without adjusting your grip, because it's probably going to be almost impossible for you to find a pistol that you can do that. And the sights on this are standard 3-dot sights that comes from the factory with eye color filled to make them easier to pick up. And as you can see, as we're looking at the back end, it is very thin. It is less than an inch thick. I measured in at 0.9 inches. So very slim, makes it sit flat against the body and easier to conceal. So that's a very positive aspect. The negative aspect of the thinness is felt recoil tends to be higher on a thin pistol. And it's a small pistol already, small and lightweight, so recoil is fairly brisk. But I don't find it a problem. I can shoot it well for several boxes of ammunition. Fiancée, she can shoot a full box without any problems or any kind of pain, but by the time she finishes a second box, she's ready to put the pistol up. It starts to get a little painful. But 2 boxes of ammunition when she goes to the range for practice, that's good practice. It's not like she can only shoot a magazine through it and be done. And she's tried pistols where after the first magazine she didn't want to touch it ever again. She never wanted to shoot it. So I found that a good thing. It's a very soft shooting pistol for its size and weight class. Okay, and as far as the trigger on this pistol, the trigger was pretty good out of the box. It was smooth, had minimal creep, and a clean break. So the only problem was it was just a tad heavy. It was around 8 to 8.5 pounds out of the box. And also had more over travel than I liked. The take up was minimal, but because of that, with the length of travel, that meant more over travel. And I didn't have an issue with it, but my fiance did. She has a little bit lower grip strength than I do, so that heavy trigger pull coupled with the added over travel meant she was shooting low left pretty consistently, because she would build up strain to pull the trigger, and then when it would break, all that extra travel would all that tension would be released with that travel coupled, and the pistol dipped a little. So I did a little bit of polishing up to lower the trigger pull and adjusted the trigger to break farther to the rear, because I prefer take up to over travel. So it was a change I didn't think was absolutely necessary. With some practice, you can use the trigger. It's not a bad trigger by any means. Her preferred triggers, though, are hammer fired and single action triggers. So getting her used to a striker fire trigger like this was a little bit more difficult. So I went ahead and adjusted it to make it a little easier on her, while still being safe and at an acceptable weight. And as far as how I have it particularly right now, as you can see, that's the amount of take up. Very minimal creep before the break, and it's a little over travel. And then that's the reset. The reset is about the same point as you would get when you just get the take up of the trigger. You can see again. As far as reset goes, I'm not somebody who subscribes to the idea that you should shoot to reset, because if you're someone like me, you have multiple pistols, and shooting to reset requires a bit more dedication. You have to practice on that trigger a lot, and you have to memorize that trigger to get it subconscious. But it can cause issues with other pistols if you have more than one, because you might short stroke and not get a full reset and cause problems or a malfunction of some kind. So that's my personal philosophy. But if you do like reset, it is very audible. It is there. You can feel it. Now, the function and reliability of this pistol has been 100%. We've only got a few hundred rounds through it so far, but it's ate everything we've put through it with no problems. I don't foresee any problems either, as the pistol has been running so well that I suspect it will run 100% for thousands of rounds. So I give it an A+ on reliability, and that's always a good thing for a pistol aimed at concealed carry. From the reading I do online, it tends to be people's experience that these are reliable as well. So it seems that overall, the Shield is a good design, very reliable design. Very few reports of issues. The biggest issue I've seen reported consistently is people say that it can be difficult to rack the slide back. Most of the people who complain also say that after they've shoot a few hundred rounds, it becomes much easier. I never had a problem racking the slide on this, nor did my fiance, but this was the model, or the one that they had sitting in their case, display case, because this was the last one they had in stock. So it had been hand cycled hundreds of times by that point in time, and that could have helped make it easier to rack. I do believe the 40 caliber version tends to be the biggest culprit of this as well, due to this stiffer recoil spring in the 40 caliber. Now, as far as disassembly, it's disassembles much like any other semi-auto pistol. I like the fact that you don't need any tools. Some of the smaller pistols do require a tool. Usually it's not anything dramatic, usually just something to push a pin with, but it's always nice to not need such a thing. Rack the slide back and lock it in place. Then flip down your takedown lever. A little difficult to do at an angle in front of this camera. So at this point, you have two options to finish disassembly. Through the ejection port, you can access a small lever that will disengage the sear from the striker and allow you to take the pistol apart without pulling the trigger. Me, I don't do that. I just lower the slide and pull the trigger and slide right off the front of the frame. It's always important that you check your pistol. Do not leave a magazine in it when you do this. Some of them won't let you slide all the way forward if you had one in, but some of them will let you'll be able to pull the trigger And there have been instances of people leaving loaded magazines in their pistols while they're doing disassembly. Either that or that's what they're saying they did when they accidentally shot the thing with a negligent discharge. But always pay attention to that sort of thing. The lever that you get to is right there. See if it shows up. It shows up a little bit. It's yellow, so you'll definitely see it. You have to flip it back up so the sear can re-engage the striker. If you forget to do that, whenever you insert a magazine, it will be pushed back up. But not a big deal. You should always remember to do this because you should always do a function check when you reassemble. The slide itself comes apart very easily. Recoil spring comes out, and then the barrel lifts out. So you reassemble in reverse order, and the recoil spring needs to be put in correctly. It is directional. As you can see, it is a captured dual recoil spring style. It has a larger diameter here and then a thinner diameter here. The larger diameter will fit this way, and you could reassemble it backwards, so watch out for that. Don't do that. Put it in correctly. Make sure the recoil spring centers. I've heard people say that if you don't center it properly, that it can make putting it back together difficult. Then you take the slide, the rail, you line up the rails on the frame with the rails of the slide. Slide it back. Lock the slide back to the rear. Flip your takedown lever back up, and you're assembled. Then you do a function check, trigger, hold it back, make sure the disconnector works, and the gun resets itself. So, in conclusion, I found this pistol to be light shooting for its weight and size. It is reasonably priced. Actually, it's very well priced, especially if you find them on sale or get it online. The build quality is excellent. I haven't had any issues. I haven't seen any tool marks, even though on older versions of the Shield I've noticed a little tool marks on the breech face, but I did not see that with this pistol at all. So very well put together. And if you're looking for a small carry pistol at a reasonable price and you want it to be well built and reliable, this is definitely a contender for that that spot. Always try to shoot a pistol before you buy if possible, because how a gun fires is completely different from how it actually feels in your hand just standing at the gun counter. So if you get a chance, give it a shot, and you'll probably really like this pistol. And it's worth the money and worth putting into a carry rotation if that is your goal. So I recommend this pistol very highly.